Hello, welcome back to the kitchen. Today I am going to talk a little bit about writing and kind of explain why I feel like I'm qualified to talk about writing on YouTube, even though I have not had a book published ever. Yeah, I know, it's a big claim there. And I'm going to talk about writing today while also baking a cake because it is my lunch break and I want to do both. I'm making a family recipe, so I'm not gonna get really into like the details of what the actual recipe is, but essentially it's like a combination between a yellow cake and a nut cinnamon cake. I picked out like 13 questions. I kind of just came up with them on my own. You can call them a book tag if you want, but it's more like a tag for aspiring writers who are also on the internet. If you would like to do this writing tag, feel free. I'll list the questions down below. Yeah, let's get started with it. First thing I'm going to do is dice up these walnuts, and that's going to take a hot second, and it's going to be loud, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Look at them, they're so small now. Let's get started with these questions. So the first question that I've picked up is a very basic one. It's just, how long have you been writing? Short answer, age of 6, I don't really know. When I was really young and in school, we had those creative writing assignments where you had to like make up a character and write 6 pages about them or something like that. I usually was the kid who was writing like 24 to 30 pages about my character. The first time I started like what could be called a book, I was about like 11 maybe, and I sat down and wrote what is probably like a 50,000 word book or something like that. From there, when I was in 8th grade, so age 13, I finished NaNoWriMo like officially for the first time, and that kind of launched me into writing like longer books, and now I'm writing books that are like 150 to 250,000 words. It's like epic fantasy kind of stuff. So right now I'm going to take like half of these nuts and put them in a separate bowl, which I'm mixed with cinnamon and sugar. This is the good shit that goes in the middle of the cake. So a fun story about this is the nuts we actually use in my family recipe are pecans, and I am a dumb fool and thought they were walnuts, and so I made this cake with walnuts a few times. I thought it was really good. When I came back home for Christmas and made this cake for my family, they were like, walnuts? This cake doesn't have walnuts in it, Erica, but I made one with walnuts and it tasted good. Also, I couldn't find pecans at H-E-B. The second question on my list is, how many books have you finished and how many books are still in progress for you? So it's really hard to estimate like how many books one has started because there are a lot of books, right? I think I've finished drafts of like, I'm probably around 10 finished drafts, not including drafts that I've like redone. Oh dear, that was way too much cinnamon. It's gonna be a cinnamon cake. I usually finish about 2 to 3 books a year. I think it takes me like 6 months to get through a full draft of a book from kind of start to finish now. And that's when it's like my main project. Usually I'm working on 2 or 3 things at a time, so you kind of see it as like one of them is my secondary and one of them is my primary at any given time. I write a lot very quickly. I've been accused of writing too much too quickly. Like, you write too quickly, sometimes it's not thorough. But for me that really helps because like, at least you're getting something on the page. That's often a big problem for writers, is like feeling like they're not getting enough on the page. So my recommendation is like, even if your writing's not that great when you're writing that quickly, like get as much out on the page as you can because it helps you streamline your ideas and it'll help you in future revisions go back and tailor it much nicer. So question number 3 and 4 are 3, what is your current writing routine? And 4, what is your ideal writing routine? Definitely my current writing routine is not as satisfying as I'd like it to be. Kind of it's just like whenever I want. And part of that's because I'm kind of in between projects right now where I don't really have a main project because I'm like preparing the book I've been working on the most over the past few years for like querying, and yet like the book I've been editing on and off for like years and years and years, I've kind of like hit a snag with because I've decided to redo some of the world building, and that just takes up time. So I'm kind of just like flitting around working a little bit on one project, a little bit on another, just kind of whenever I feel like it. I'm doing a lot of reading now instead, which is really good for my writing as a whole, so I don't really feel bad about it. But in college, I was much better about writing. I would set aside kind of 2 or 3 like large blocks during my week, so usually during the mornings. Usually I would go off campus to write in a coffee shop once a week, and then I would try to find like 2 big blocks where I would be writing each week. So sometimes it would be like Tuesday and Thursdays from 9 to 12, sometimes it would be like Fridays from 1 to 4, things like time blocks that I had where I didn't have to worry about class very much. I just focus on writing then. I find it helpful to have a nice routine of hours. As for my ideal writing routine, I really like to intake other material in the morning. So whether that's playing a video game or reading a book or reading what I wrote the day before, working to intake some media, that would be the morning. And then I would eat lunch and have a nice relaxing time with that, and then in the afternoon sit down and write, produce new content, and then in the evening work on other stuff, like editing videos or do more reading or do more writing or whatever occurred to me at the time. I think it's very important to take in as much media as you're trying to write out. That's not something I've incorporated until pretty recently, now that I've had more time to read. But I think in college it was kind of made up for by the fact that I was doing a lot of thinking in my college classes that gave me a lot of fodder for writing. So I guess I didn't mention, this is a bundt cake. Oh, I'm gonna clean out this bowl. The next questions on my list are also related. 5 is, what are the best parts of writing? What are the parts of writing that you really enjoy? And number 6 is, what are the parts of writing you don't enjoy so much? For me, the best part of writing is, okay, I think there are 2 pieces that I really, really enjoy. One is feeling the moments where it all comes together. Feeling like I have hit a breakthrough on what happens or how a character works, or finding a motif that I didn't realize I was writing, and working out how to incorporate that into the text. So usually for me those moments come during outlining, especially if I'm outlining a second draft. So I will hit a point where I realize something isn't working the way I wanted it to, and I have to figure out how to fix it and how to make it functional. And the moment when I finally figure it out is just one of the most rewarding moments. Yeah, that's the part I love the most, I think, is just solving the conundrums. And the second part is feeling the characters come to life. And that for me happens when other people read it and when other people talk about the characters as if they're real people. So if I have a friend read a book, I'll typically ask them to give me their thoughts in the middle of reading it, because that helps as a writer know what's satisfying and what's not satisfying. But I'll also ask my friends who are your favorite characters and what are your favorite moments, and to hear people talk about characters as if they're real people is just so satisfying to me. So what I just did was spread some nuts over the top of this bundt pan. That's going to be the top layer. The outer piece is surrounded with nuts. Now I should get to what the worst parts of writing are. For me, I think the worst parts of writing are really getting into detail on scenes that I've read over and over again. Line edits as opposed to developmental edits I find really tiring. I'll do this thing where I print the book out and read it, which is because that's how I read. I read better on paper. And I'll go through every line and it'll be fine when I'm reading it, but when I actually have to go back and do the edits on the computer, transfer my written notes onto the computer, that's the part I find the most frustrating. Also, anything to do with summaries or pitches or synopses, I hate that. I hate doing it. Okay, so now I'm gonna mix the stuff. While I add the eggs, I figured I would talk a little bit more. So the next question is, what sorts of stories are you interested in telling? And for me, it all comes back to the thing that I talk the most about on my channel, which is power. Big surprise, right? No, I'm interested in stories where, I'm interested in stories of a lot of different types. But yeah, the big plot points I'm interested in are power. I'm interested in telling stories that reimagine the structures and the institutions that exist in our world, and just kind of asking questions well, why does it have to be this way? Here's another way it could be. Also, I'm really interested in family relationships, and especially sibling dynamics are really interesting to me. Yeah, I like talking about people who are stuck together in uncertain circumstances, or like people who are stuck together who have to learn to like love each other. And that, like, siblings are like that because like they grow up together. Families in general are like that because they're all like having to deal with each other's problems all the time. And I guess the last thing I'll mention is that I am really interested in telling stories that end in a really deep examination of what like love is and what community means. I like telling stories that are about like large groups of people working together and like big communities where like everyone has to play a role. I like telling stories about organizations and groups. I love to kind of just inquire about the world that we live in, and the best way, the like universal things are like relationships and group dynamics and the way that personality traits play out and the way people are forced to grow and change and adapt in the presence of one another and in the presence of big uncertainty and adversity. Those are the stories I'm really interested in telling. The 8th question on my list is very simple. It's what will you never ever write? Or like, what are the things you're not interested in writing about? I'm not interested in modern contemporary stuff. Like, I'm not interested in talking about like American politics or history or, yeah, actually in general, I'm not really interested in writing historical fiction. Like, historical fiction can be really interesting to me, but I'm more interested in the macro dynamics of history. And like I'm interested in going to school for history, so like I am interested in history for sure, but like not the sort of close storytelling that happens in historical fiction. That's just like not my thing, really. I think also I'm not really interested in like hard sci-fi. I'm not really interested in things that require a lot of very precise research. Like, that's not why I'm interested in writing, and like I do research in order to figure out like the answers to things, the answers to questions, in order to figure out like what would work and what would be cool inside my books. But I'm not really interested in making like the research a main part of like what I'm doing. I would rather do that sort of research in order to tell you about that research, because I think the research is cool in itself. And yeah, I would rather do it to work on nonfiction stuff than fiction stuff, in other words. Number 9 is what sorts of scenes do you like working on? I need to be in the right sort of mood to write a fight scene. They either flow really well and naturally for me, or they go really poorly. One or the other, is never both. I really like writing just like moving banter sequences. And I really like writing confrontations between characters. Okay, so the next step of my cake making is to pour all the batter and the nuts into the bundt pan and layer them intermittently to get the final product. Oh my god, I didn't add butter and vanilla. Holy shit.
'Cause baby, there's something you know.
I mixed in the last ingredients. It's so good. Okay, so now we get to pour it into the bowl. The next question, as I'm doing this, are actually the next 2 questions. What do you consider your writing weaknesses, and what do you consider your writing strengths? I think that I am good at banter. I'm good at writing characters being together and having a good time with some antics and yeah, just like quick, snappy dialogue. I'm not as good as like explanatory dialogue or like big sequences, just anything that's like only a couple of sentences at a time. I'm good at that. Weaknesses? I'm so bad at setting, you guys. Like, nice descriptions of what a room looks like. I'm so bad at it. I wish I were better at it, and I'm working on it actively. But talking about what something looks like has never come naturally to me, because I can never get away from using, it was a square room, and it had some stuff in it. Same with character descriptions. Like, I find myself often being like, he was short, he had red hair, he had a crooked nose, instead of like anything more exciting than that. So that definitely is like a weakness that I would like to, you know, grow on, something that I'm working on. I also think in general I tend to spend too much time inside a character's head telling you like exactly what they're feeling at all times, as opposed to like letting their actions and words speak for that. I do think I'm good on the macro scale of like breathing life into characters and making the characters like actually feel like real people. That I think is something that I'm relatively good at.
But clearly you say I'm not good for you.
And while I'm setting my timer and doing a little bit of cleanup, there's one more question on my list, which is, what do you consider your immediate writing goals? In the short term, I've been wanting to query the book that I've been working on for a while, and hopefully that will be a successful query and land me an agent, and then I can begin like really working on that in earnest. And like the revisions that other people have given me. I've chosen now to query because I think that I'm at the point where the book is not going to get any better without somebody else's help. And maybe that looks like, you know, asking someone to professionally edit it, or maybe it just looks like going to ask an agent if they'd be willing to rep it. So that's the next step for that. I'm also doing a revamp of the other book I've been working on for a really long time, which is kind of just like a fun exploratory, like at my own pace. I'm doing some like revamping of the world building and then using that to revamp the storyline of the first book that I'm writing. That's like a longer term project because I don't anticipate that going anywhere for a while. So yeah, that's kind of just fun and for me right now. And then I'm working on just like fun exploratory projects generally, just like starting new things here and there. And yeah, I'm hoping to use this year as a year to just like read more and like build my craft that way and figure out how to talk about the books I like and what is in the books I like that I can emulate and how to actually do that. I'm kind of in a transition period right now, but I think it's a good transition period because it's one where I think I'm ready to make the next step from like endlessly editing on my own to actually like working on getting into the publishing business. I absolutely cannot express to you guys how good this smells. I got one more piece of the recipe to share with y'all, and that's making the glaze. It's little more than powdered sugar, vanilla extract, butter extract, and milk.
The
cake is out of the oven. I like totally dropped it on the counter as I was taking it out, but let me show you what it looks like. She's so pretty. This is my favorite part. This is my absolute favorite part of this whole process. I get to use the cake paintbrush. It's a paintbrush, but you use it on cakes. My counter is gonna be so dirty after this.
stop you, take my breath away.
If you're also an aspiring writer on BookTube and you want to answer the writing questions that I came up with and answered today, please feel free. I would love to hear like what other people find themselves to be good at, find themselves to be excited by, and like form a community of people who are both into the writing and the reading parts of the writing community. That sounds really cool to me, so if that describes you, you know where to find me, because you're watching my video. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm really excited about this cake, you guys. Oh man. Guys, you gotta look at it. Hold on, you gotta see it. So pretty.
I'm so in love with you. Oh. Now I'm just passing the time, waiting longer for you.